You're sitting there scrolling through investment advice, watching your Robinhood account bounce up and down, checking it maybe 3-4 times a day. You've got like $5,000 in the S&P 500, maybe some Tesla stock because your buddy told you it's the future, and you're hoping that in 20 years, this is going to somehow turn into enough money to retire on. Meanwhile, your college roommate who barely passed economics, the guy who couldn't tell you what a P/E ratio is if his life depended on it, just bought his third rental property and drives a car that costs more than your annual salary. And you're sitting there thinking, what am I missing here? Here's the thing. You're not missing some secret stock tip or some crypto coin that's about to moon. What you're missing is so obvious that it's hiding in plain sight. My name is Tom, and I spend way too much time thinking about why smart people make terrible investment decisions. If you're someone who's been dumping money into index funds while watching your income stay completely flat, or if you've been told that passive investing is the only way to build wealth while you're working a job that pays the same as it did 3 years ago, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out, because what I'm about to show you is going to completely change how you think about investing. So let's talk about this investment that nobody wants to talk about, the one that financial advisors don't mention, that investment gurus on Twitter completely ignore, and that might actually be the single best investment you can make before you turn 40. Look, in the last 20 years, the S&P 500 has returned about 9.8% annually on average. That's actually pretty good. If you invested $100 per month starting in 2003, you'd have put in $24,000 over 20 years. And with dividends reinvested, you'd be sitting on approximately $76,000 right now. Not bad. That's more than tripling your money. Most people would be thrilled with that. But here's what most people don't realize. There's another investment where that same $100 per month could have turned into $500,000, $750,000, or even over $1 million in the same time period. And I'm not talking about getting lucky with Amazon stock or Bitcoin. I'm talking about something so mundane, so boring, that most people completely overlook it until it's too late. I'm talking about investing in your earning power. Now, you might be thinking, oh great, another video telling me to read books and take courses. But hold on. Because the math here is so absurdly in favor of this investment that once you see it, you're going to be kind of angry that nobody explained this to you earlier. Let's run the actual numbers. And I mean the real numbers, not some vague motivational stuff. Let's say you're 25 years old and you're making $50,000 a year. That's roughly the median starting salary for college graduates in the United States, according to the National Association of Colleges and Employers. Now, if you're a typical employee, you're going to get about a 3% raise every year, if you're lucky. That's basically just keeping up with inflation. By the time you're 45, you'll be making around $90,000. Over those 20 years, you'll have earned about $1,400,000 in total. Now, let's say instead you take $100 per month, that's $1,200 a year, and you invest it strategically in your earning power, not random courses, not feel-good seminars. I'm talking about calculated investments that directly increase your income. Here's a real example. You spend $1,200 on a negotiation course, not some get-rich-quick scheme. I'm talking about learning how to actually negotiate your salary, how to ask for what you're worth without sounding entitled, how to position your value in a way that makes your boss want to pay you more. 6 months later, you use those exact techniques to negotiate a $10,000 raise at your annual review. You just made a 733% return in 6 months. The S&P 500 would need 8 years to match that return, but it gets better. Because unlike your stock portfolio, this raise compounds every single year. That $10,000 raise becomes your new baseline. Next year's 3% raise isn't on $50,000 anymore, it's on $60,000. Over 20 years, that $1,200 investment adds up to an additional $200,000 in earnings. And that's before taxes. But you don't stop there. Next year, you take another $1,200 and you get certified in Salesforce. That's another job switch, another $12,000 raise. Then you spend $1,200 on a project management certification, another $8,000 bump. Then you invest in a course on Python or data visualization or presentation skills or negotiation tactics. Let me show you what this actually looks like over 20 years with just $100 a month invested in skills versus the same amount in the S&P 500. Year 1 through 5, you're investing $1,200 annually. You get 3 significant raises, totaling $35,000 in additional annual salary. Your income goes from $50,000 to $85,000. Year 5 through 10, you keep investing. You're now positioned for management roles, you get promoted twice, your salary hits $125,000. Year 10 through 15, You're now senior level. Maybe you've switched into a director role. You're at $180,000. By year 20, if you've been strategic about this, you're making somewhere between $200,000 and $300,000 depending on your field. Let's be conservative and say $220,000. So over 20 years, you invested $24,000 total, the same amount you would have put in the S&P 500. But instead of having $76,000 in your brokerage account, you increased your total 20-year earnings from $1,400,000 to approximately $2,800,000. That's an additional $1,400,000. That's not a typo. That's an 18x return on your investment compared to the 3x return from the stock market. And here's the really crazy part. You can do both. You can invest in your earning power and invest in the stock market. But here's what most people do instead. They invest in the market first, maybe max out their 401k, and then they say they don't have any money left to invest in themselves. They've got it completely backwards. This is where it gets really interesting because the psychology of why people make this mistake is fascinating. See, investing in the stock market feels safe. It feels like what you're supposed to do. Every personal finance article tells you to start investing early, to max out your retirement accounts, to buy index funds and hold forever. And that's not bad advice, but it's incomplete advice. The stock market is predictable. You put money in, you watch it grow, you see the numbers go up on your screen. There's no uncertainty about whether it's going to work. The S&P 500 has averaged about 10% returns for decades. You know what you're getting. But investing in yourself? That's terrifying. What if you take that course and it doesn't lead to a raise? What if you get that certification and nobody cares? What if you waste your money on something that doesn't work out? There's uncertainty there. There's the chance you might fail. And here's the thing. That fear is exactly what keeps most people stuck earning the same salary for years while their friends and colleagues race past them. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. When I was 26, I was making $52,000 a year working at a marketing agency. I had about $8,000 in my Vanguard account that I'd been diligently contributing to every month. I felt pretty good about myself. I was investing for my future and all that. Then I noticed that my boss, who was maybe 5 years older than me, was making about $130,000. And I asked myself, what's the difference between us? He wasn't smarter than me. He wasn't working harder than me. But he had skills I didn't have. He knew Google Ads inside and out. He could build complex Excel models. He knew how to run client presentations that actually closed deals. So I did something kind of crazy. I took $2,000 out of my savings, not my investment account, but my emergency fund. And I spent it on 3 things: a Google Ads certification course, an advanced Excel course, and a presentation skills workshop. My friends thought I was insane. You're taking money out of savings? That's the opposite of what you're supposed to do. 6 months later, I used those skills to get a new job at $72,000. That's a $20,000 raise. In 6 months, I made 10 times my investment back, and I'd make that same $20,000 extra every single year going forward. That was 12 years ago. I'm not going to tell you exactly what I make now because that's tacky, but I will tell you that my income has increased by about 380% since then, and I can trace almost every significant raise or promotion directly back to a specific skill I invested in learning. Meanwhile, if I had just left that $2,000 in the S&P 500, it would be worth about $7,000 today. Instead, that investment has generated over $800,000 in additional income over the past 12 years. Now, you might be thinking, okay, Tom, but that's just your experience. That's anecdotal. Maybe you just got lucky. Fair point. So let's look at the actual research on this. A study from Georgetown University's Center on Education and Workforce found that workers with professional certifications earn, on average, 20% more than those without them. 20%. If you're making $60,000, that's $12,000 a year. Over a career, that's literally hundreds of thousands of dollars. The Federal Reserve Bank of New York found that the median annual return to a bachelor's degree is about 14% over a lifetime. But here's what's interesting. That number goes up significantly when you add specific skill certifications on top of that degree. We're talking returns of 20%, 30%, sometimes over 40% annually in the first 5 years after getting certified. But here's where people get confused. They think, okay, I'll just go get an MBA. That's investing in myself, right? Not exactly. And this is crucial. Not all investments in yourself are created equal. An MBA from a top school might cost you $150,000 and 2 years of lost income. That's potentially $300,000 in total cost. Yes, you might come out making $150,000 a year instead of $80,000, but it's going to take you several years just to break even on that investment. The ROI is there, but it's delayed. Compare that to spending $1,500 on a Salesforce certification that you can complete in 3 months while still working. And that gets you a $15,000 raise. That's a 900% return in less than a year. The key is identifying high ROI skills that are in demand right now and that you can learn relatively quickly. I'm talking about skills like data analysis. Every company needs people who can make sense of data. Learn SQL, learn Tableau, learn Power BI. These skills can add $20,000 to $40,000 to your salary. Digital marketing, Google ads, Facebook ads, SEO, email marketing. Companies are desperate for people who actually know how to do this stuff well. We're talking $15,000 to $30,000 raises. Cloud computing certifications, AWS, Azure, Google Cloud. If you're in tech or anywhere near tech, these certifications can add $25,000 to $50,000 to your income. Project management, PMP, Scrum Master, these certifications signal that you can actually get things done. Worth $10,000 to $25,000 in additional salary? Sales skills. I know. Nobody wants to be a salesperson. But here's the thing. Every job involves selling. If you can learn to sell, to negotiate, to persuade, you will make more money, period. This might be worth $30,000 to $100,000 or more. Now here's what most people don't realize. The goal isn't just to get one raise. The goal is to create a compounding effect with your earning power. Let me explain what I mean. When you invest in the stock market, your returns compound because your gains generate more gains. You make money on your money. It's exponential growth. The same thing happens with your skills, but it's even more powerful because skills stack on top of each other. Let's say you learn data analysis first. That gets you a raise and puts you in a role where you're working with data every day. Now you're around people who know Python, so you pick that up next. Now you can automate your data analysis. That's another raise. Plus, you're saving time. Then you realize that you need to communicate your findings better, so you invest in data visualization and presentation skills. Now, you're the person who can not only analyze data, but present it in a way that actually changes decisions. That's another promotion. Then you learn some basic machine learning because you're already comfortable with Python and data. Now you're building predictive models. You're in a senior role, making serious money. See how each skill builds on the previous one? That's not possible with stock market investing. Your Tesla stock doesn't make your Apple stock more valuable, but your Python skills make your data analysis skills more valuable, which makes your business communication skills more valuable, which makes your project management skills more valuable. This is compound interest on steroids. And here's another thing that nobody talks about. When you invest in skills, you're not just investing in higher salary, you're investing in options. Let's say the stock market crashes tomorrow. Your portfolio drops 40%. You can't do anything about it except wait and hope it recovers. You have no control. But let's say your company goes under or your industry tanks. If you've invested in yourself, if you have in-demand skills, you have options. You can get another job quickly, you can freelance, you can consult, you can start your own business, you have control. I saw this happen during the pandemic. I knew 2 people in similar situations. Both lost their jobs. Person A had been diligently maxing out their 401k for years. They had about $120,000 saved up. Great, right? Except they hadn't invested in any new skills in a decade. They were doing the same job they'd been doing since 2010. When they got laid off, they spent 8 months looking for work and eventually had to take a job making less than they made before because their skills were outdated. Person B had about $40,000 saved, but they'd spent the last 5 years constantly learning new skills. They had certifications in digital marketing, data analysis, and project management. They got laid off on a Tuesday, and by Friday, they had 3 companies reaching out to them. They had a new job within 2 weeks, making 15% more than their old salary. Who was actually in a better financial position? Person A had more money in the bank, but person B had more valuable skills. Person B was anti-fragile. They got stronger from the disruption. This is what I mean when I say investing in yourself isn't just about making more money. It's about building security. It's about building resilience. It's about making yourself valuable enough that you're never really at risk. Now look, I know what some of you are thinking. Tom, this sounds great, but I barely have enough money to cover my bills. I can't afford to invest $100 a month in courses. I get it. I've been there. But here's the thing. You can't afford not to. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, the only way out is to increase your income. You can't budget your way to wealth when you're making $35,000 a year. You need to make more money. And the fastest way to make more money is to become more valuable. Can you find $100 a month? Maybe you cut back on eating out twice. Maybe you cancel a subscription you don't use. Maybe you sell some stuff on Facebook Marketplace. Maybe you drive for Uber 1 Saturday a month. I'm not trying to be preachy here, but $100 a month is $3 a day. Most people spend more than that on coffee. And here's the beautiful part. This investment pays for itself almost immediately. That first $1,200 you spend on a certification could get you a $5,000 raise within 6 months. Now you have extra money every month. You can keep investing in yourself and start investing in the market too. But you have to start. You have to make that first investment. Let me tell you about my friend Sarah, because her story illustrates this perfectly. 3 years ago, Sarah was making $45,000 working as an administrative assistant. She was 32 years old and felt completely stuck. She had about $12,000 in her retirement account and she felt like she was doing the right things, but she couldn't see how she was ever going to retire comfortably. She came to me frustrated, saying she felt like she'd wasted her 20s not investing enough. And I told her the same thing I'm telling you. The best time to start investing in yourself was 10 years ago. The second best time is right now. So she took $1,500 and got certified in Salesforce administration. Not because she loved Salesforce. She'd never even used it before. But because the data showed that Salesforce admins were in high demand and the certification was achievable in a few months, 6 months later, she got a job as a junior Salesforce admin making $65,000. That's a $20,000 raise from a $1,500 investment. But she didn't stop there. Over the next year, she invested another $2,000 in advanced Salesforce certifications and learned some basic coding. She's now a Salesforce developer making $95,000. In less than 3 years, she more than doubled her income. But here's what really blew my mind. She told me last month that she's on track to make over $120,000 next year because she's getting recruited by bigger companies now. 3 years ago, she was making $45,000 and felt stuck. Now, she's making $120,000 and has companies competing for her. And you know what the craziest part is? She's still contributing to her 401k, but now she's putting in way more money because she can actually afford to. She went from investing $200 a month to investing $1,500 a month. Her retirement account is growing faster, not because the market is doing better, but because she's putting in way more money. That's the compound effect. Higher income lets you invest more, which compounds your wealth. But you can't get there by just investing in index funds when you're making $45,000. You have to increase the income first. Now, let me give you a framework for actually doing this because I don't want this to just be motivational. I want this to be actionable. Step 1, identify your income ceiling. Where are you now? And where could you realistically be in 3 to 5 years if you had the right skills? Look at job postings for roles you want. What are they paying? What skills are they asking for? That's your roadmap. Step 2, identify the highest ROI skills. What skills show up repeatedly in those higher paying job postings? What skills are in demand but in short supply? Make a list of 3 to 5 skills that could significantly increase your earning power. Step 3, prioritize by speed and cost. Which of those skills can you learn the fastest and cheapest while still getting a meaningful return? That's your first investment. You want a quick win to build momentum. Step 4, make a specific plan. Don't just say, I'm going to learn Python. Say, I'm going to complete the Python for Data Analysis course on Coursera by March 15th, spending 1 hour every weekday morning. Specific goals with deadlines. Step 5, invest the money. Actually spend the $100 or $500 or $1,000. Don't wait until you feel ready. Don't wait until you have extra money. Make it a priority now. Put it on a credit card if you have to. This is one of the few things I'd say is worth going into a little debt for because the ROI is so high. Step 6, apply immediately. Don't wait until you're an expert. As soon as you have enough knowledge to add value, start applying for new roles or asking for raises. You learn the most by doing anyway. Step 7, reinvest. Take some of that raise and invest it in the next skill. Keep the cycle going. This is how you create exponential growth in your income. And here's something crucial. You need to do this before you're comfortable. The best time to invest in yourself is when you're hungry, when you're frustrated with where you are, when you're motivated to change. Don't wait until you're comfortable, because comfortable people don't change. Look, here's the truth that nobody wants to hear. Every year that you don't invest in yourself, you're falling behind. The world is changing faster than ever. The skills that got you your job 5 years ago aren't enough anymore. AI is coming for repetitive work. Automation is coming for predictable work. If you're not constantly learning and adapting, you're becoming less valuable every single year. But here's the good news. Most people aren't doing this. Most people are coasting. They get a job, they do the minimum to keep it, and they wonder why they're not getting ahead. If you just commit to investing $100 a month in learning high-value skills, you're going to leapfrog over so many people who are smarter than you, who work harder than you, but who aren't investing in themselves. This is the ultimate arbitrage opportunity. While everyone else is obsessing over whether to buy VOO or VTI, whether to invest in crypto or real estate, you can quietly invest in yourself and generate returns that make all of that look silly in comparison. And look, I'm not saying don't invest in the stock market. I'm not saying don't save for retirement. What I'm saying is get your priorities straight. If you're 25 or 30 or even 35 years old and you're making less than six figures, your number one financial priority should be increasing your income, not optimizing your investment portfolio. You can have the perfect asset allocation and still be broke if your income is too low. But if you have a high income, you can make all kinds of financial mistakes and still end up wealthy. Income is your biggest wealth building tool. So here's what I want you to do right now. And I mean literally right now while this is fresh in your mind. Open up a new note on your phone or grab a piece of paper. Write down where you are financially right now. Your current income, your current savings, your current net worth. Be honest. Now write down where you want to be 3 years from now. What do you want to be making? What skills would you need to have to get there? Now identify one skill, just one, that you could learn in the next 3 months that would move you closer to that goal. What's one certification, one course, one skill that is in demand and that you could realistically learn quickly? Now commit to investing in learning that skill this month. Find the course, buy it, schedule the time to learn it. $100, $500, whatever it costs. Make it happen. And then here's the key. 3 months from now, use that skill to either get a raise or get a new job. Don't just learn it and hope something happens. Actively leverage it. Update your LinkedIn, update your resume, start applying for roles, or schedule a meeting with your boss to discuss a raise. Most people learn stuff and then do nothing with it. They take courses and then never apply the knowledge. That's not investing in yourself. That's just consuming content. The investment only pays off when you actually use the skills to increase your income. This is not complicated. It's just different from what everyone else is doing. And that's exactly why it works so well. Look, I get that this goes against everything you've been taught about personal finance. We've all been conditioned to think that investing means putting money in the stock market and waiting 40 years to see results. We've been taught to be patient, to compound slowly, to not take risks. But your 20s and 30s aren't the time to be patient. This is the time to be aggressive about building your earning power. You can be patient with your investments when you're making $200,000 a year. But right now, if you're making $50,000 or $60,000 or even $80,000, every year you spend not maximizing your income is a year you can't get back. The math is just too compelling to ignore. That $100 a month invested in yourself could genuinely change your entire financial trajectory in a way that the same $100 in the S&P 500 never will. So stop thinking like an investor and start thinking like an asset. You are the investment. Your skills, your knowledge, your ability to create value for others, that's what determines your wealth. Everything else is just a multiplier on top of that. The stock market will give you 10% a year if you're lucky. Investing in yourself can give you 100%, 500%, 1000% returns if you do it right. This isn't even a close comparison. 20 years from now, you're either going to be that person sitting on a modest investment portfolio, wishing you'd taken more risks, or you're going to be the person who invested in themselves aggressively and built the income to support the lifestyle you actually want. The choice is yours. But I'm telling you, as someone who has done both, as someone who has spent years watching people build wealth and fail to build wealth, the ones who win are the ones who invested in themselves first. So take that $100 this month. Don't put it in Robinhood. Don't buy another share of VOO. Invest it in a skill that's going to make you more valuable. And then do it again next month and the month after that. And I promise you, in 3 years, in 5 years, in 10 years, you're going to look back on this decision as the moment everything changed. Because the best investment you'll ever make isn't in the stock market. It's in yourself. And the returns aren't even close.